This is Mathman Eddie back with another topic from a Standard Statistics 1 course. And this video is devoted to finding the standard deviation of a sample set of data. Now there's many ways to do that. You can use a graphing calculator, you can use Excel, but what we want to do in this video is to show how we would calculate standard deviation by using the formula itself. So let's take a look at that. Let's take the standard deviation formula and take a look at it. And in this formula we can see that to compute the standard deviation we must take and subtract the x values from the mean. This would be called the deviation. Square the deviation and then do that for all of the x values. Sum up the square deviations, divide by n minus 1, and when you do that you end up with the variance for a set of data, and when we take the square root we'll have the sample standard deviation for our set of data. Now we're going to do this by hand in a table format. Here's what the data is. I'm just going to do 4 pieces of data, and since we're going to need x bar, let's compute that right away. Of course that's the sum of all the x values divided by n, and in our example it's 87.5. Now let's set up a table, and the table will look like this. We'll have a column for the x values, and then we need to compute the deviation, so that's xi minus x bar, and then finally xi minus x bar squared. This will be our square deviations. So let's take a look at some of the computations here. And we do this one at a time. We list the x values in this column, and then we take x minus the x bar value, minus the mean, and this will give us a deviation. So we have 4 different deviations, one for each piece of data. And we'll square those deviations, and this column is the square deviations. Now, as we're doing this work, we notice that the sum of all the deviations equals 0, and that's a good way to check your work. This should always happen unless we're using a rounded value for the x bar value. Now we're interested in knowing the sum of all the square deviations, so this column says 225. Let's get back to our formula and finish off this example. So our formula says to take the square root of the sum of the square deviations divided by n minus 1. Now from our table we had 225 for the sum of the square deviations, and we're dividing by 3 and the square root. Now this is about 8.66, or we might round it off to 8.7. So 8.7 is the standard deviation for the sample set of data that we have. And we're signing off on this video. Look forward to other videos on specific topics in Statistics 1.